Hello and welcome to your new favorite paranormal podcast. I am your host, Kevin Leonard, and with me again this week is Seth Converse, and this is
Agree.
Into the Paranormal. How you doing, Seth?
I'm doing great, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, tired.
Yeah,
Glad to have you back another week. Uh,
glad to be back.
Anything new going on with you?
Not really. I worked. Um, I've been
It
working.
just sounds about right. I mean, Kappa has an investigation this weekend coming up, so
Mhm.
I'm excited to get back out in the field and just be in my happy place, somewhere haunted. That's weird. People look at me strange when I say that. Like I'm ready to get to my happy place. I mean, obviously, home with the family is happy place, but it's almost therapeutic to be somewhere investigating and haunted.
That's exactly what the word I was going to say. It's therapeutic.
Yeah,
It's just like you're doing your passion. You're doing what you want, and it's yours. It's nobody else's. It's just your thing, and
right,
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
right. I mean, other people don't get it, but those that do, they understand.
Anybody that's passionate about anything will understand that.
Yeah.
If they like to draw or write music, play music, or whatever that place is, you know what I mean. And I have
Hmm.
multiples of those things, you know what I mean.
Same.
But they all make me feel that way. Like they make me feel grounded and
Yeah.
like
Yeah, there's definitely something truly special about being somewhere haunted for us, for me.
mhm.
And can't wait to get back. Hopefully after the investigation, we'll even do a case files episode, and we'll talk about it. For today's episode, thank you guys for joining us and spending some time with us. You could be anywhere else in the world right now, but you're here with us, and we thank you for that. Uh,
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good after morning, good evening, whenever you're listening or
Yeah.
watching.
So today we're going to be talking about time slips, the theories on time slips, a couple of how they might be linked to the extraterrestrials, our friends from the space of outwards. But before we get into all that, we got a couple of news stories, as we like to do. So let's just go ahead and jump into that. Oh, and we're gonna have some more event dates coming real soon, so make sure if you're interested in coming to any of our events, go ahead and do what you have to do to follow Into the Paranormal. Visit the Facebook page, Kappa Paranormal, and stay tuned for that. So once those dates can be announced, we will let you guys know. So the first story is um, bloated aliens that look like Jabba the Hutt could invade Earth and wipe out humanity. So for any of our Star Wars fans out there, that might sound like a dream come true. Maybe not the wiping out humanity part, but Jabba the Hutt coming to pay you a visit. I mean,
I'd like to see him try.
Star Wars is, it's cool. I mean, I'm a fan of the first three of the original trilogy.
Same.
Uh,
Yeah,
eh,
we grew up on them. I
right.
mean, it's just
Yeah. And then the newer ones came out and, they happened.
they did happen. It's to me, it's just more of like they didn't really like think it through. Like
Yeah.
when they did one, two, and three, it
Yeah.
was like
It was groundbreaking, the first three. For the time period, it was
yeah,
groundbreaking. It
yeah.
was,
It just the story was great, and then they were like, I remember in I think it was Return of the Jedi when Luke and Leia find out they're brother and sister, but they knew it all along. Um, and he's like, "What do you remember about our mother?" And she's like, "Oh, she was beautiful, she was kind, she was this." And then one, two, and three come out, and you're like, "You didn't know your mom." Your mom died of childbirth. How do you
Yeah,
know she was, and you're just like, how did you miss that? Like, how
right.
did you, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of that. There's a
There's a
lot
lot
of
of
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can do a whole
Of the
series of podcasts just on Star Wars
and
alone.
the and consistencies of the story after the original
Yeah.
trilogy. Yeah.
But no,
So
dude,
this
bring it,
is
John.
on themirror.co.uk. Don't know much about this website, so take it with a gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching amount of salt. But hideously bloated slug-like aliens could be coming to quote-unquote wipe out humans in a Star Wars invasion, an Oxford University biologist has warned. The slimy extraterrestrials would look exactly like Star Wars villain Jabba the Hutt. Professor Tim Coulson wrote in the European magazine explaining how it's perfectly rational to assume intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe. I think it is it is perfectly rational to assume that. um,
I agree.
if the universe is teeming with life as he expects, that these technical words, Kevin, technologically advanced creatures, which will be bloated, slow-moving blobs, may be planet colonizers set on plundering Earth's rich natural resources. Professor Coulson, who has advised governments on the possibility of alien life, warned that the world must start to treat the idea of aliens as a threat to mankind's existence. He wrote, given aliens are likely made from the same stuff as us, they may very well behave like us. Perhaps high-tech alien spacecraft are already traversing vast tracts of space towards Earth on a mission to make it a new home for the aliens that built the kit. If that is true, we should treat any alien tech that appears in our solar system with extreme caution. Uh, and I will
Hmm.
link this article in the description and the show notes. So yeah, we could just live Star Wars at some point, according to this guy.
I choose Han. I'm Han. Um, what like
I want a
the
lightsaber.
article the article just goes back and forth, like where you're like, yeah, I agree with that, and then you're like, well, that's a little far fetched, but okay, and then he goes back into like uh, what make like where's this guy? Like I can't
Where's
tell
the
if he's
appearance
trolling,
coming from? Like,
right? I can't tell
why
if
do they
he's
have to be
trolling
blobs?
or yes. Why are they blobs? A lot like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah,
Like
precisely.
I'm like, where you go? And they're
Yeah.
slow moving, so that's good for us.
Yeah, it
Um,
would be like a zombie invasion. You would hope that they're slow moving. Then you could just walk
exactly.
briskly away.
Yeah. Or as Walking Dead showed us, they're slow, and for some reason, you still can't get
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
I
they
don't
still
understand.
outrun you somehow or overpower you and outnumber you.
Dude, during
But
that show, I'm like, why didn't they just get on a boat?
yeah,
But that's neither here nor there.
yeah. I mean,
But yeah, that's an interesting article, I guess.
it's fun to think and fantasize. I guess if
But
I
I would love to live some Star Wars stuff. I'd be cool with that.
yeah. All right, and our next article says where is ex-CIA agent shares evidence he discovered in canceled project that proves there was life on Mars. So this comes from the Lad Bible. A man who claims he is able to use paranormal abilities to see other places and times, including the future, says he has seen evidence that there is life on Mars after all. Joseph McMoneagle says he is able to do something called remote viewing, which is where a person is supposed to use their mind to view things that their body cannot see. A person could theoretically have an outer body experience to see a thing or location far away. And for several years, McMoneagle was referred to as remote viewer number one for something called Project Stargate, a U.S. Army unit created to investigate whether psychics could be used for intelligence operations. Project Stargate was closed down in 1995, with the CIA judging that no discernible benefit had been established from it. But McMoneagle claims that he was able to see things on Mars. He recently appeared on the American Alchemy podcast, where he claimed that in May 1984 he saw evidence of alien life. Joseph McNeagle spent years in a project where the U.S. tried to use psychics for intelligence. He claims that he was handed a card with coordinates and Mars 1 million BC written on it, and then started to see ancient structures from long ago in the past. I started getting an image of human beings that were trapped in a place where the atmosphere was turning bad, McMoneagle claimed to the podcast, saying that he could see giant humans there. It was obvious these people were dying for some reason, but they were humans. They were just twice our size. He claimed that people could see in his viewing, the people that he could see in his viewing were very tall but thin and appeared to be hiding inside a giant pyramid larger than anything ancient civilizations on Earth had managed to construct. Project Stargate's remote viewer number one said it seemed like these ancient and tall Martian people looked like they were taking shelter from a storm on the planet's surface. He described being asked to look at the surface of Mars a million years ago and claims he saw evidence of human-like life. Speaking about exactly what he says that okay, it's worded very weird. Speaking about exactly what he says there, he said different chambers, but they're almost stripped of any kind of furnishing or anything. It's like strictly functional, a place for sleeping, or that's not a good word, hibernation, some form. He then claimed he was shown negative images of the spot on Mars he'd been given coordinates and that he'd seen bones and buildings on the surface. McMoneagle suggests this meant that Mars had been ravaged by a big object passed through our solar system and took the planet's atmosphere away, dooming the inhabitants to a grisly death. Well, how do we feel about remote viewing and the possibility of this?
Joseph was on a podcast back in 1984, he says.
Um,
Is that what it said? He
well,
was on a pod.
he was on a podcast. Um,
That's some serious.
no, he
Look,
recently
now we get into
appeared.
time slipping.
Yeah, no, he recently appeared on the American Alchemy podcast, where he claimed that
Oh,
in 1984 he saw evidence of alien life.
I
But
see.
he
Okay, I got
said
one
on
thing
the
to say.
podcast that in 1984.
Gotcha. I got one thing to say. Joseph, hit us up. I want to talk to this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't. I don't know. I don't know too much about like what is it, remote viewing or
remote viewing, yeah. See, that
um.
goes into, we spoke briefly, Corey and I spoke briefly about psychics sporadically on the show.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
our thoughts on psychics. Whereas we don't necessarily disbelieve that the gift or ability exists, we just haven't been given the proof that it exists. And that
Hmm.
goes with remote viewing. You could tell me that you can view remotely whatever, and I honestly just have to take your word for it. I can't see what your mind's eye can see.
Same. Like, and do you believe in dreamscaping?
Right. I mean,
Right. That's another. I think it's a different form of that, right?
mhm.
It seems like it would be.
Any sort of like
Um,
lucid dreaming or anything like that.
lucid dreaming that I mean I that I've done. I know that that's a thing. But I used to be able to do it a lot better when I was younger, but it's harder now that I'm older. It's kind of weird because lucid dreaming's fun because you can just take over. You're like, I know I'm dreaming. I want to do
Right.
this. I want to fly, or I want to, you know, you're like, I want to be here, and then bam, you're there. That's fun.
Yeah, see, I've never been able to do any of that. Um, but as far as like remote viewing where your conscience or while it's happening or
Yeah,
you're awake while it's happening, I mean, that could just be a very, very vivid imagination because I can be at a place and vividly imagine what this place looked like in, say, the 1830s or something like that. You know,
sure.
I mean, the accuracy could be off because, I don't know it, down to the key points of what the 1830s looked like because I wasn't there. But I could,
Mhm.
imagine very vividly, what it could look like. So could it be a case of that? Could remote viewing just be a case of that? I don't know. I can't say yes, I can't say no because again, I don't have the evidence to back it up.
Yeah, and I'd have a million questions for this guy.
Yeah.
Like, what year did this happen? Were you on any sort of like
Psychedelics, did they give you
psychedelic
anything?
drugs? Were you on any medications? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, if it's a resounding no, then I don't know. Like maybe he's got something. He's very detailed about it, right?
Right,
Like he's like,
because I believe I've heard of Project Stargate before. Because apparently it was a CIA-led experiment for the Army. And I feel like I've heard Project Stargate before. Not the TV show.
I
Like,
know yeah, it sounds familiar, but
yeah.
I'm like, I keep thinking that I'm thinking about the movie or the shows or whatever.
Right.
So
So, what was his name? Joseph McMeagle?
I
Um,
believe so. Yeah.
if McMoneagle, Joseph McMoneagle. Um, I know you're an avid listener or watcher of the show and a fan. Um,
Of course, who wouldn't be?
right. So hit us up, info at kappaparanormal.com, and we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, him
But
and Shaq. Shaq's a big. He's a big
oh
listener.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He leaves comments all the time.
Well,
And
nobody can see them, but that's because
right,
he's
yeah.
like John Cena's constantly like posting stuff on, but you know
Not anymore since he's a bad guy
he's
now.
a heel now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next we have guest says he experienced paranormal activity before a haunted Liberty Inn lost power in Wednesday storm. This comes from a local Kansas City news source.
Let's
So,
stop there. Let's just stop there for a second. I had a paranormal experience, and then the lights went out during
yeah,
this. Okay,
yeah.
okay. Sorry, continue.
So, Liberty, Montana, or Missouri, Montana. Sorry. Liberty, Missouri. While many homeowners and businesses across the Kansas City area experienced power outages Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, the power outages at Belvoir Winery and Inn, which is considered haunted, elevated the experience for one guest. The property located in Liberty, Missouri, yeah, served as an orphanage beginning in 19 or 1895 and through the 1950s, according to operating manager Jesse Kuehler. He said at the height of the orphanage, about 450 lived there, or 450 children lived there, I'm sorry. After the orphanage was closed, a nursing home and hospital were housed at the property located at 1325 Oddfellows Road. Lim Keeler said it's not uncommon for high winds to cause power outages at the property. Anytime we have big storms like this, especially with lots of wind and things like that, I usually come out and demand this for the night. I usually come out and man this for the night to make sure nothing goes wrong, he said. Lim Kuehler said he has experienced footsteps, voices, a couple apparitions, pianos playing on their own, and doors opening and closing on their own. People come here for that reason from all over the nation, he said. 5 of the inn's 9 rooms were occupied Tuesday night, according to Lim Kuehler. We have one guest that came through that didn't know there was paranormal activity here or anything like that, he said. Unaware of the property's reputation and in need of a room, the guest had quite the experience. About 2 a.m., he had a hand reach up and grab his leg underneath the sheets, Len Kuehler said. Freaked him out at the time, but he didn't leave. He stayed and then he told me about it in the morning. About an hour later, the power went out. Len Kuehler said the room temperatures dropped to about 55 degrees without heat. It wasn't terrible as long as you were under the sheets, he said. The experience didn't seem to scare the guests away. He told me on the way out, he said, now that I'm looking back on it, it was pretty awesome. Maybe I'll come back and stay, Lim Kuehler said. Lim Kuehler said big storms can add to the fun at Belvoir Winery and Inn. It squeaks, it makes windy noises, he said. So it's kind of fun at some level. It feels like one of those haunted house old movies. So the Belvoir Wine, what is it? Belvoir Winery and Inn. So, yeah,
Okay. I mean,
that's
th-
not out of the realm of possibility, I think.
I don't think so. I mean, we've in the paranormal field, we've talked a lot of like about how thunderstorms, lightning, and stuff can charge
The
the
atmosphere.
atmosphere and create um uh those conditions. Um, but I haven't with doing meteorology and stuff, I haven't found between doing meteorology and paranormal stuff, I haven't really found the connection there of like
Yeah.
why that happens. But I just lump it up with like things like quartz deposit or limestone or
Hmm.
things like that hold a lot of energy that can easily that spirits can actually
Can feed
use
off of, yeah.
to show themselves. So we do it all the time in the field with the batteries
Yep.
and the things like that. And we say, hey, you can use our energy to show yourself. You can use any of all these
Equipment,
devices to pull from because in the end we just want the experience, right? And we want to be able to see you and we want to try to communicate
right,
and try to get down to the bottom of it, right? So
right. And
yeah,
especially a place like this where, they already claim that it's haunted. I imagine
yeah,
that was pretty exciting for someone who had no prior knowledge to any of their claims. They're just like, somewhere to stay for the night and,
yeah.
just randomly getting
I,
grabbed by the leg.
I'm happy he was happy about it
Right?
because most people are freaked out about it. And we're like, oh man, I would have loved somebody to go touch
Yeah.
my leg,
Yeah. Yeah. Our
So
first thought was like, man, I didn't have a camera on it.
I know, right? Or like, we're always if anything like that happens, we're like, if we're there as a team and someone's like, I just got touched, and you're like, oh, please touch me.
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like, hey, you touched him, touch me.
yep.
Pull my
Like,
hair, pull my shirt.
yeah, you want that feeling
Right.
because then it solidifies it, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Because
someone's here.
yeah, and it turns a personal experience into multiple personal experiences where you can validate,
Yeah.
So if I have a personal experience, if we're somewhere investigating and I say, "Hey, someone, just grabbed my arm," and I'm telling Seth, where Seth, he may believe me because we trust each other on the team. It's just that it's what I'm saying happened. I don't have any evidence to back this up. However, if hey, Seth, something just grabbed my arm, and then let's say an hour later, Seth could be with Corey doing an EVP session, or Tracy, someone doing an EVP session,
Mhm.
and Seth feels someone grab his arm, and no one is to his left or right, whichever arm is grabbed. Hey, Kevin just had this experience too, and it solidifies, like, okay, that adds more validation to the experiences that we're having.
Yeah, now we absolutely know someone's
Hmm.
here, and now
Hmm.
we can push it a little further and try to get more interaction
Right.
and hopefully a voice or something like that.
Right.
God, I love investigating.
Yeah.
So much fun.
So time slips. I was reading up on, time slips a little bit, and because I myself, we were joking before the episode, talking about time slips, how, about work or whatever. But I myself I don't feel like I've ever experienced an actual time slip. I think time slips would be defined where, it could be where you're just losing time, that something like that, where like it's, you're driving down the road, it's 10 p.m. and then next thing it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Or time slips could be, where it's like time is just interweaving amongst itself. You know, there are instances where people have, walked into like a field or an establishment or something, and they walk in and it's the 1950s all over again. I know there's 1950s themed diners and restaurants or whatever, but they walked in and it's the 50s. It's almost like an episode of The Twilight Zone or The X-Files.
That
And
would be so cool, though,
I would love, yeah, it would probably freak me out in the moment, but I would immediately get excited. But
for sure.
yeah, so I mean, I would love to, like, walk into somewhere and it'd be like a saloon or something though, like Western times. That would be amazing to me.
Yeah.
But there are people that claim to have experienced this. So my question is, what causes these time slips? Is it some sort of like quantum physics? Is this an illogical thought where that just couldn't happen? Um, I I have a theory
Yeah.
as far as like dimensions and time. Uh, what is it when, if you're a Marvel fan and you've seen Loki, you know what I'm talking about, where you have these timelines that just exist and they branch off.
Hmm.
Okay, now stay with me here. So I have a theory that everything, and this is just my theory, something I've thought of. I'm not saying this is actually what I think to be true story. This is just a theory. Theories are fun. They're meant to be fun. Okay. Um, but I have a
In
theory
theory.
that, yeah, but it's basically everything that is going to happen or will happen, has happened, everything has already happened. And it's basically like you have, like, think of this just lines on a paper, and they're all timelines, and they happen on a loop. So this could explain the stone tape theory, like residual type hauntings or whatever. They literally happen over and over again based on key elements, times, dates, temperatures, moon phases, you name it. Dew point could probably play a role. I don't know. I mean,
It could also
stupidity.
explain deja vu.
Deja vu, perfect example. But they basically just happen over and over and over again. And I feel like, if you just imagine those lines on a paper as different timelines and they just get closer and closer together, and they might even like do like wavelengths, and they get so close that they tend to bleed together, and then they jar up like apart again.
Yep.
So I have a theory that it's just that, the entire universe, the world in a mathematical scale has
Hmm.
already happened. So everything that has already happened will eventually happen again, exactly the way it's happened. Or it could, play out differently in this timeline. So at some point at the very same time that it is what's today, March 5th, 2025, at the very same time, it could be November 17th, 1716, or March 5th, 1716. It just, to say it could be the same day. I don't, go that deep into the theory, but I do think that, everything happens just on a continuous loop. And that's where we kind of just bleed in. That could explain even intelligent hauntings, where you're talking to someone in another timeline. It's just that you're um so close to that timeline because you get, those EVPs or those hauntings where the spirit is talking to you back just as shocked that you're there as you are that it's there. It
Hmm.
reminds me of an episode of Ghost Hunters. I believe it's the Queen and the something where
Yeah,
they were,
there's the princess.
yes, the
They were,
princess.
and they're like, "Hello, are you there?" And she's like, "Yes, hello, are you there?"
Right,
Like that was like I was like, "Whoa,
right,
that's intense."
right.
Like intelligent, like
Yeah,
back and forth.
right. And it's almost like, yes, there was someone right there, but just on a different timeline, at that, and it just so happens
I,
that they got so close together
yep.
and then that they could interact briefly.
I like this theory. I like this theory because I've had the same thing, for us in the paranormal for a while too. And going, I always thought of it like as like we're on the same earth,
Mm-hmm.
but it just in a different realm of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought of it like, yeah, if you're on the same wavelength at the same time as that other, realm,
Mm-hmm.
then you may be able to see each other
Right.
or hear each other or whatever. I've
Right.
always kind of had the same kind of theory about that, like because we we can't figure it out, so like all we can do is theorize on it, and I it's a solid it's a solid scientific theory for it to be that.
Yeah.
For as much as we know about science and about wavelengths and about these things, it definitely seems feasible that that could be a possibility
Yeah.
to me.
I just think it's so interesting because it could explain a lot of the intelligent hauntings. It can explain a lot of the residual hauntings. I mean, obviously, I still think that there are, some hauntings where we're actually talking to spirits. So I'm not saying that this could explain the paranormal away, that it is just time
Mhm.
slips or anything like that. It's just I think that when those two time lengths or those timelines get really close, they tend to bleed together, and that could explain these claims that people have where they say they're walking into these establishments, these businesses, or open field or whatever, and then next thing you know, it's 100 years in the past or maybe even the future, whatever, and then just like that, it's back to your present day. And it just kind of, am I going crazy? Did I really just experience that? And a lot of people, I feel like more people have experienced this than we know about because people just don't want to admit it or talk
Mhm.
about it because, they have, it's almost taboo. They don't want people to think that they're crazy.
Yeah, and it seems like I don't know. Yeah, is it like you said? Is it quantum physics? Is it something neurological? What the hell's the name?
Neurological?
Neurological? Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, it that's insane, and it's very cool. Like it's a
Hmm.
very cool um thing to think about.
And could
for sure.
humans or science or technology at some point in the far or maybe even near future, the way we're going with AI, could they find a way to tap into these timelines if that theory even exists or is not exist because I've just had it. If it gets proven or anything like that, could they tap into these timelines and make it to where you could freely jump timelines? That could bring a whole Loki situation. Bad things could happen. But
Well, King Loki, man.
yeah, well, I mean, even then, that could explain time travel. Maybe in the future, they have tapped into this, and you know, that could that could
Yeah.
explain some of the cases that people claim they're time travelers. I mean, I think it's always fun going to like TikTok or whatever and seeing the videos where they're like, I'm a time traveler from the year 2055. Or it's never even 2055. It's like always like the next year. And they
Right. Right.
explain to you all these things that are happening. And I always stumble upon them like
Yeah.
the day before something is happening. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess tomorrow I should expect like an asteroid to
Yeah.
land. Like,
Well, apparently The Simpsons perfected that,
yeah,
I
yeah. Matt Groening apparently is the time traveler.
yes.
I mean,
It's funny. I do this thing um where um uh people that hear this episode are going to steal this, and that's okay. But like people like to, when they're in the like grocery store or the convenience store or something, and somebody goes, "Oh, total's 1994," and they're like, "That was a good year."
yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
I do almost the opposite, where they'll be like, "That'll be 1576," and I'll be like, "That was a good year," and they're like, "How do you what?" Like, and I'll be like, "Yeah, I got a DeLorean. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I got a TARDIS outside. Just never
Yeah,
mind."
yeah, time travel could be fun, but I mean, I would definitely want to time travel.
What? Okay, if you had the ability to try and to time travel,
Okay.
what time are you going to? Where are you going? Like what era are you going to first?
The flag above your head says it all, and you know that.
Okay, so early 1700s.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to prevent a death.
You're going to prevent a
In
death and probably
1780.
die in the process.
Probably. It probably wouldn't end well for me, but I'm going
Yeah.
to 1718.
1718.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Edward
mean,
Teach.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to
You're
hometown legend.
dude. Yeah, you're going up against a lot.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
one of you.
I'm just gonna
He
be like, hey, listen, stay retired.
he
You
was
need to
he
stay
yeah.
retired.
There you go. Like he was Blackbeard.
Yeah.
He's a lot more than a Kevin
Yeah. Yeah.
Leonard.
I
He's
don't know if he's the type to listen to reason
I highly doubt it. He'd be like, "Who
or
the fuck are you?
yeah, like listen,
Why?"
I just traveled from 2025.
Yeah, he's not gonna believe that.
That might be the last thing I get to say.
Yeah, exactly. I just traveled from 2020. Yeah,
Or second, because I want to hear yours as well. But second, I would go back to last year. I believe it was last year, 2023, and I would I would tell Bray Wyatt to go to the doctor. For all my wrestling fans out there, yes, I would. Bray Wyatt, please, or wear your heart thing when you take that nap.
fair.
That's yeah. That would be the more realistic because
Okay.
going back to the pirate thing, that yeah, that would probably end bad for me. Going back to prevent Bray Wyatt from passing, that would probably a lot of good would come from that.
Sure. Yeah, he was a great wrestler. All right. Yeah, mine's a little different, though I would love to see this. Um, I've always said that if I could time travel, the first place I would go is like the Old West.
No.
And I'd probably die there too. But for some reason I just want to see it. I just want to see like that that time and experience it like for a minute just to get the like feel of like how it actually was instead of like you know stories and speculating and like actually being there and being like
Yeah.
that would be cool. um
Funny you bring that up. Tracy and I have just started binging Yellowstone. I mean, I know it's not,
yeah.
like centered in that time period, but there's
i
cowboys
couldn't
and
I
stuff.
couldn't get into it because it was too modern for me. Like I like certain westerns, you know what I mean, but I want them to be in their time.
Like the
Like
spaghetti type
I
westerns where it's like set
uh,
in
kind of
1890s and stuff.
like Tombstone's one of my favorite movies of all
One
time.
of the best movies ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And but even like Unforgiven or Quick
Mhm.
and Dead or like
Hanging
movies like that.
High and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Once Upon a Time in the West. That's an old
Mm.
spaghetti western, but it's really good. But um so I started watching Yellowstone and I got a little into it, and then I was like, I can't, like they're showing up in brand new Dodge Rams with like
Yeah.
AR-15s and like there's all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, but when they came out with the prequels,
Yeah.
like I think it was like 1873 was phenomenal. And that
Yeah.
was with Sam Elliott, and the girl that plays his daughter is an amazing actress, and she narrates the whole thing. It's freaking phenomenal. Oh, and is it Carrie Underwood
Carrie
and
Underwood.
Carrie Underwood? No, it's Tim McGraw and his wife
Faith Hill.
Faith Hill. They do. I mean, the show's just phenomenal.
Yeah, so I
And
haven't
they
seen
go.
any of the prequels or anything. I think we just
They're
finished season 2 of Yellowstone last night.
okay.
So we're definitely gonna go back after we finish Yellowstone. We're gonna watch the prequels. We're
I
into it. I mean,
you're
I
gonna
think
you're
it's
gonna
really good.
like those. You're gonna like those more. And then 1923 is like um uh Harrison Ford, and that's been a killer story so far. They're coming out with season 2. I think they just came out with it. So that's those are more like my style, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like cuz I can imagine it's 2025. I can yeah, I sure. I can imagine cowboys in Yellowstone going against like all like having fights against each other. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm like I'm living that. I don't need to watch it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I can it's but the acting's great. I love Kevin
Oh yeah,
Costner. Like
yeah. He's in a lot of like,
done.
yeah. I haven't seen a Kevin Costner movie in so long, but then when we started watching Yellowstone. Um, I told Tracy, like, 'cause I remember the first Kevin Costner movie I watched was Dances with Wolves. And it
Great
was,
movie.
yeah, it was great. It's long. I think,
Mm-hmm.
is it longer than Titanic? I think. It's
Mm,
3 hours and some change.
yeah, roughly about the same. I remember having we had to have
The
it
two
was
two
two
cassettes.
VHS.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
two
I told Tracy, I
VHS.
was like, once we get time, I want you to watch Dances with Wolves. But
Yeah,
then it also brought me back kind of to my childhood. I mean, obviously we didn't run around it with like AR-15s and stuff, but
right.
when I was younger, we had, like uh several horses and a cow and pigs and chickens and stuff like that. And
Sure.
it
Yeah.
kind of like, oh man, I kind of I miss, that,
Yeah. It's
like when I was
fun.
little. I mean, I was too little to like. I mean, I remember riding the horses and stuff like that because Tracy was like, "You can ride horses?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I haven't done it in years, but yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's a
But do
It'll
you
be
remember
a
your dad hopping in a Dodge Ram and driving to the end of the driveway and shooting up a bunch of people with AR-15s and shit?
no,
No,
no, but
yeah.
I mean, he was a cop, so I remember him with guns.
Oh,
But
that's
I mean,
fair. You were almost there.
yeah, I was, just about there to living Yellowstone.
We should make a show out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's contact Netflix.
yeah, it'll be a hit. I promise. I have this great idea for a show,
Hmm.
and they're like, wait a minute, no, but it's different. It's different. I promise.
It'll be the Leonards.
Yeah, yeah. But but yeah, like I mean, see, I wouldn't mind being able to time travel to like the Western days, but I kind of feel like I lived it to a degree, when I was younger,
Hmm.
because I had the horses and all that fun stuff. But yeah,
Yep.
I
So
mean,
I would also travel back to the 60s in New York
mm,
to see Bob Dylan perform in his early days in one of those like spots. And I'm not talking about like, you know, because of the complete unknown coming out. I still haven't seen it and I can't wait to. I love Timothy Chalamet and I love Bob Dylan. I loved him my whole life because my dad was a huge Bob Dylan fan. But I'm such a huge Bob Dylan fan and I would love to see that. Like just sit down and just listen to him with just him and his acoustic and shoot, man. Like I would have so much fun. Like
yeah,
that would be like the highlight. I'd be like, this is perfect.
yeah, yeah. There'll be a lot of. I could have some fun with time travel. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I can't say that I would travel in the future though. It's weird how when if say we had time travel, as just if it was a luxury, something that we had access to, we would just probably go to the past. There's nothing in the future that I want to see, like
No.
distant future, like of course I want to see, my kids grow up, but I want them to grow up when they grow up. I'm not trying to rush that,
Yeah.
I don't want to see,
Yeah. There's
like my
there's
baby
there's
turn
something.
into a 23-year-old, all of a
Yeah.
sudden,
Yeah. There's something to
or
be
an
said
old man.
about the element of surprise, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to know what happens. I want to see what happens. I want to be surprised about it. I want like the spontaneousness, like
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier. And like the the crazy thing is that we like we can time travel through text, through books,
Yeah.
through we can and this is a huge problem I have with just human beings in general is that we don't learn from it. And
Yep.
that's a huge problem. Like there is no reason we should be like making the same mistakes like we made before. Like
Right.
they're there so that we don't make them again.
Yeah.
I have to teach my son that, dude. It's
What's
you
the
made
saying?
them
If you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. I teach it to my son. I go, look, he's like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
fine. You have to make the mistake to learn the lesson
Right.
so that
If you
you don't
put
do it.
if you put
But
your
we don't do
hand
it.
on a hot stove and it burns you, you're gonna think twice before you put your hand there again.
Yep.
I
But
mean,
yet here we are, it year after year after decade, and I'm just watching us make as human beings like the same mistakes we made hundreds of years ago and learn from it. But for some reason,
right back in it.
we're just you
Yep.
know, it's a
Yep.
sad, it's just a
It's
sad
a
thing.
sad cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like,
I
what are you guys doing? Read a
100% agree.
book.
Yeah.
Read a book.
100% agree.
It doesn't
Uh,
work. Never worked.
all right. So, with that being said, I think we're about out of time for this episode. I think that was good conversation, good topics,
Yeah.
I think. The time the time slips and stuff. I think that brought up a good discussion. Um, but yeah, all that being said, Seth, where can they find you?
You can find me here on this podcast for the time being, and visit kappaparanormal.com, and you can reach us on there. Other than that, I don't have much of a social media presence, so you can find me at my address. Beep, and or just like
Or you can call him at area code 386. No.
yeah, no, keep going, keep going. That's fine.
But
I'll just
yes.
ignore the calls.
And you can find me at all things Kappa Paranormal. And yeah, just Google Kappa Paranormal. I'm there. We're there. Visit the Discord. Join the Discord. Join the discussion. We're all there. Um, we're out of time. And as always, I have been Kevin Leonard. That has been Kevin, or Kevin. That has been Seth. That has also been Kevin. That has been Seth Converse. And this
Oh,
was
that's a
Paranormal.
whole nother thing.
And that was Paranormal.